Okay, there we go. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rami. I am filling in for Maria today. This is a meeting of the Museum Park Committee. Today is May 25, 2023. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so you can see the presentation. Just let me know if you do not see it. So the agenda is pretty brief today. Melanie, how do we normally do the roll call? I'm sorry, I forgot to ask you. I think you said we have a quorum already.
Yeah, I've taken notes.
Yeah, okay.
All members are present except for Courtney Lindsay.
Thank you. So I am going to make a motion for approval of the minutes. Somebody can make a motion, please.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Approval. Approved. Thank you.
Aye.
Okay, so I am going to move on to the financial update. There we go. Okay, so we were touching on that just a minute ago, Kathleen. This is the most up-to-date income statement for the area. There has been it's been pretty strong as far as meter revenue is concerned in the area. I do want to point out that as you review this, you will see that March had, and I'm sorry, I'm just admitting Courtney, he just dialed in. There we go. So March will stand out from the rest of the months, and the explanation for that generally is it was spring break. So the activity in the area was pretty robust, more than usual. But overall, the average, I know some of the spring break kind of bleeds into April a little bit. And that's why you see April, I mean, there's obviously a drop, but the drop is still above average for the year. So we are projecting, if based on the current average, we are projecting a little bit over $600,000 in meter revenue for the area for the year. So basically, we've got a couple more months to record here, May in a few days, and then the month of June. If all else, stays the same, then we're projecting a little bit over 600K in meter revenue for the area. On the obviously, you take out all the expenses and what have you. The line that you're probably most interested in is the one at the very bottom, where the projected revenue share is. We are projecting a little bit over $86,000 to be available for shareable revenue. And obviously the portion for the PPD out of that is the 60,000, which is projected right now at almost $52,000.
Wow, that's
so when
great.
So when we cut the check for you, I think the last year's was around 20 or 21, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
So this is definitely a good trend upwards for it.
Thrilling.
Go ahead. Huh?
It's thrilling. It's thrilling.
Yeah, that's great. I did want to mention, please forgive me, I don't know if this was shared at the last meeting or not, but if you will notice right here, we added this section that basically gives you a very quick inside look at how many meter transactions occurred for the month, the average transaction amount, and how many citations we've issued for the month in the area.
There's a slide dedicated to that, Rami.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
See if I can move forward. Is there any questions on this before I move forward?
Mm-mm.
Good. Okay.
No, but it's nice to have good numbers there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so this is the slide that Melanie was talking about. So I did want to mention something really quick, though. So expired meter citations, November was at 93 and now it's at 64, and I know it fluctuates up and down a little bit. I did just want to mention that we've had, as I'm sure you've heard this in other industries, we've had quite a bit of shortages in staff. Recently, we are making some headway on this. And so we expect the enforcement in the area to start going back up again. And so that's definitely something that we're working on with our compliance team. Now, I'm also looking at the routes that they take in the area to see if we can, if there's any way for us to make them even more efficient. We're looking at the technology being used in the area to make sure that it's being used to its full capability. So I'm sure a lot of you know that we use LPRs to go in the area, and we sometimes we've got officers checking plates and things and handhelds and all that. So I'm just kind of going over the entire plan with the group, and specifically with the supervisors that are responsible for the area, and see if there's anything that we need to tweak so we can be as efficient as possible. But again, overall, revenue is pretty strong. Meter transactions continue to be pretty strong. Again, March was a good outlier to have because of spring break, but the averages are definitely very strong in the area, especially compared to where it was late last year. Any questions on this slide? Okay. Okay. Kathleen, I was tasked with asking you if you can cover the Arbor Care, please. So the floor is all yours.
Oh, thank you. Or Nikki may want to do that. I'll briefly introduce, I think.
I'm sorry, I mean Nikki. Sorry.
Yeah, I was saying
Sorry.
Nikki has the
Yeah.
contract.
Sorry. My apologies, Nikki.
Oh, no worries. Kathleen is well equipped to do the same. We got the agreement with Bartlett signed from the district. Chatted with Joe Keefe on yesterday. He's going to, pardon me, guys. Sorry. I have two different things going on here. So they're going to go through their schedule next week and let us know when they'll begin the Arbor Care process. We're excited because it's definitely much needed work along the corridor, but we will send out an email to the team and to the committee once he confirms the start date, so we're able to track progress.
And Nikki, I'm not sure everybody's aware that we structured that their Bartlett's initial proposal was over. I asked them to stay at a limit of $21,000. And so they adjusted their numbers from their original or one of the proposal revisions to reflect $21,000, and they took some of that work and put it into next year so that we could have a systematic, continuous program of Arbor Care. But this committee will need to further define exactly what role we want. I mean, I think we're all clear that we want Bartlett to further the systematic approach that they've implemented elsewhere. But what exactly do we want them to do? And are there other projects that we want to use this revenue for other than Arbor Care? My personal feeling right now, or thoughts, is that Arbor Care and the Esplanade Cares are probably first and foremost, but that's open for discussion as we move forward. Nikki, do you have anything to add to that?
Not at the moment, but just to echo what you said, it is important for us to identify the types of projects we'd like to move forward with. Arbor Care, is a perpetual thing, but we just need to be mindful of, how this revenue is spent. Other ways to pull in other resources from management district and other areas or other resource pools to be able to facilitate some of this work, so we don't exhaust our budget here with Arbor Care alone. So I think it's wise that everybody kind of bring to the table a few projects that they think are necessary for the area, so that we can start looking at costs and getting estimations, and any type of additional deep dives we need to facilitate it, we can get that done so we have accurate proposals.
And should we also ask Bartlett, I'm sorry, we may be getting off track here, but should we also ask Bartlett to submit a programmatic approach with an accompanying budget so that we can make decisions from that?
I mean, they can as a reference point, so that would be fine. but I don't want to, just because we've used Bartlett, as a part of our initial work, we may be able to vet someone else who can, be a competitor or do something a little bit different, for a different cost. So we would like to invite them, yes, to give a number, but we want to be mindful that we have to be good stewards of these dollars, and there may be someone who can do the work at a lower cost.
Well, Nikki, I think that's really up to the committee how we
Agreed. But
use this revenue. Yeah.
Agreed. However, we want to be good stewards. And I'm done. Thanks.
So is this something that y'all want us to put on the agenda for next time, just so the committee can get together and come up with a project list that you would like to discuss, or how do you want to
I would
handle
say
that?
that we start
Okay.
looking at projects.
Yeah, since we're getting closer to the, maybe a real number, now we'll know kind of what we have to work with.
Yeah. Yeah, and honestly, again, unless something drastic happens between now and the end of June, I think these projections are probably pretty solid.
And I think it would be helpful for our next, thank you, Rami. I appreciate that.
Uh-huh.
For our next meeting to have a programmatic approach from Bartlett, so that, because I do believe that our Esplanades are one of the cores of this community. And I'm not sure, I would go back to the Caroline Promenade and the Livable Center study and look for additional projects in there. And, whatever the committee recommends, and then we can maybe use a percentage for each, split the revenue percentage wise and assign it to 2 or 3 projects or whatever works out for us.
Okay.
And I thought we had already started a projects list. Was that not something we did last year? I don't have my notes in front of me.
We did, but it's not something that we've revisited since the last meeting. So
Okay.
we prepare to walk through it in more detail at our next meeting.
Well, Nikki, do you have that? Maybe we could start with that.
I'm driving, so I don't have it up. But
No, not right now, but for the next meeting.
Yes, sure, no problem.
And then, or maybe distribute it before and we can be thinking about it.
Sure thing.
Okay, thank you both. Is there anything else to add on this Arbor Care proposal before we move on? Okay. Let's see. I feel like I'm missing out on something, but this is really it for the presentation. It's an open forum now, so if anybody has anything that you'd like to discuss or bring up, or for action items for us to take back, please feel free.
I'd just like to say thanks to Kathleen for just kind of working with the city of Houston so that we could do this traffic calming project along Caroline. It's going pretty good underway. I don't know if you've been by to see Caroline at Rosedale, but it's some amazing stuff happening down the corridor. And Kathleen, if you just want to update them on what the city has recently shared for other construction, that would be helpful.
Yeah, but number one, I want back at you, Nikki. They look fabulous, those traffic islands. And Kyle, for your recommendations on the plantings, I think and people are not, I was afraid, like you, Nikki, that people were going to run over them, but they're not. And what the city said recently was that they would start construction on the remaining, I think, how many do we have, Nikki? 10 or 11 other low intersections?
10, I think, remaining.
And the landscaping, they would do the remaining. I'm not sure whether it was the remaining 10 or just the 2 prioritized at Crawford and Herman and Caroline and Southmore that they were planning on construction, but they're keyed up. The funding stays in place no matter if they get them done this fiscal year or next fiscal year. We'd like for them to, of course, finish them sooner rather than later. And then working with Houston Southeast on the landscaping. That'll be fabulous. And Nikki, thanks to ushering that match for the landscaping from the management district, the $86,000 that Councilmember Evan Shabazz launched this project with, and making them really just, I mean, I hate to use the word spectacular for a traffic island, but they really look so much better than the paved concrete things that we would originally have had. And they'll replace the curb and PVC sticks that Commissioner Ellis was so generous to defining the bike routes. We've got a good template to start with. So those, I think those are fabulous. Nikki, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you've done a great job. I'm excited about what it turns out to be at the end.
Yeah, me too. I mean, they're really, Kyle, have you been by to see them?
I just briefly, I didn't get out and stop and look at them yet, but that's on my list to do. So
Well, you don't need to. You just drive by them. And I honestly, I think they're so calming and just
yes,
so, they really, it's just astonishing what a few plants can do.
it really is.
Yeah, they
So-
look great. That whole intersection looks so much different. I mean, of course, having the traffic calming curbing there, and then with the landscaping, it's a great intersection now. So if
It
we
is,
can
isn't it?
copy that at other places, it's going to make the neighborhood look really nice.
And I would also like to add, and Kyle, tell me if I shouldn't, stop me in my tracks, that Herman Park Conservancy has applied for a commuter bike route, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Through, and what's the dollar value?
Oh, geez. I just looked at it again this morning. It's in the millions. So it's a federal transportation project. So
So that will connect TMC through to Midtown, correct?
correct. Yeah.
And through the park, so that all those commuters that we see in the mornings that we're so happy to see, but it will separate the bikes and the pedestrians, which will make it so much safer for everybody, and it'll just be fabulous. So best wishes to Herman Park and for carrying that forward. And Nikki, I think Houston Southeast had a hand in that too. I'm not sure, but it's it'll make a difference. I hope that grant is forthcoming. So, but my point to that is it will just augment what we're doing in Museum Park and what Houston Southeast is doing to augment pedestrian and all multimodal transportation.
That's awesome to hear.
It is. Kudos to Herman Park Conservancy.
Okay, any other topics of discussion? Anything y'all want to bring up? Is there anything that you would like for us to take back and get back to you at the next meeting?
Well, Rami, do we need to identify, and I'm not asking for a bureaucracy, but do we need to identify committee chair, and who's the secretary? That's, I guess, I don't know.
So, Melanie, is that something you're gonna have to help me out here, Melanie? Is that something that we decide on, or is that the committee decides on that and just we
Yeah,
agree on it, or?
The committee decides on who your officers would be.
And is there a protocol for that? I mean, or do we just use Robert's rules, or?
Yeah, Robert's rules. There's really no protocol in the ordinance about the structure.
Okay.
I think
So
Greater
that-
Southeast. I think Greater Southeast would be considered the secretary though, because they're like the owner of the minutes.
Okay, so that they'll be archived at
Yeah.
Houston Southeast, and will they be archived at Park Houston or not?
Yeah, we'll post them to the website.
Yeah.
Okay, so Museum Park Super Neighborhood doesn't have a responsibility for that.
No.
I just want to make sure I don't run afoul of the law.
But we'll put that on the next agenda.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to meet in July? Have the next meeting in July? Or do you need to meet in, I don't know if you'll be ready by June with your project ideas and.
I mean, don't we need to kind of wait till we know what the real numbers are? And, it's not like we have to spend the money right that minute. We need to be able to know what the numbers
Yeah.
are and then get our plan to go forward.
Yeah, so we'll have the real numbers in July.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I mean, waiting until July it's probably a good idea, just because by then we will have the solid final numbers for you to look at.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
And is Courtney still with us?
Yes.
Just,
I,
we've all been
I am.
kind of talking over him probably. Courtney, do you have anything that comes to mind?
No, everything seems pretty straightforward. Now, one of the things that I would think that we could do in the meanwhile, are we waiting on those numbers to come in July, is kind of be brainstorming like a sidebar, and maybe we can, on that email thread that you started a couple weeks ago or last month, I believe, kind of just jot those ideas down and send them in, and then we could just compile them. That way we'll have just some an idea of some of the projects that we all kind of collectively come up with. And again, it's nothing that we have to move on immediately, because again, want to make sure that the cost is right, and we're not just like selling on dreams or promises, and we can't afford it. So I think that if we just kind of like politely start sending in some ideas that we had or that come to mind, as opposed to waiting until July, I think that might be beneficial.
And that's a great suggestion, Courtney. And I would ask people to start, because we're using the Museum Park Livable Center study pretty much as our master plan, and the Caroline Promenade. Not saying that we're sticking to projects on Caroline, but those are excellent starting points where the community has already vetted those projects and has really defined what they'd like to see. Of course, that probably needs to be refreshed, in some way. But I would ask people to start with those documents first.
And I just want to echo Kathleen on that. I think that that's a really major point. I mean, ideas are still, of course, really great, but really going forward with what we've already started with, I think, is imperative.
Thank you, Kyle.
And then I just had one other question about the Arborscope license from Bartlett. Is that do we know who owns that license or who has access to the data that's on that license?
Nikki? Did we lose her? Yeah, that's always been a question.
I'm here. That's one of my follow-ups with Joe, because I don't have clarity on that either. I know that license is important for us to be able to pull information, but I don't know who is the ultimate owner. But I will get clarity on that.
Well, here's a more fundamental question. Did we actually buy the license, or did we rely on them giving us the GIS data that they acquired?
So in the document, the license was mentioned, but let me double check and get with him to just confirm.
Sent us, with the proposal, he sent us a map with the numbers of the trees, and then in the Caroline Promenade report, there's an associated list of trees that are numbered, but that I don't know why we didn't get those two together. It was an oversight on my part as we were editing that report. But yeah, we need to get that clarified, because it's always been a question. Thanks for asking that, Kyle.
Yeah, and honestly, I think Arborscope is probably one of the better tools that we could have used to manage the canopy with this type of a project, because of it being multifaceted, as with multiple people involved and things too. Like, of course, we use ArcGIS and a database and iTree and things like that, but that's because all our data is our data. So with this being like city data and public data, and then multiple entities involved with it, I think it's really good to have it in Arborscope, and it can be exported should we ever decide to go with a different type of database. And it's so the thing with Bartlett is that they're going to use Arborscope themselves no matter what. That's how they keep up with the work that they're doing. They basically sell you the license so you have access to see what they've done, and so and to be able to make decisions on your part. So I'm just curious. I just want to make sure if we paid for the license that somebody has access to it, and that we can pull reports on it to see, where we're at in the stages of whatever program that we decide to go with.
Yeah, I agree, Kyle. And that's why I cannot remember, because there was a conversation about that license with SWA and with Houston Southeast, and I can't remember where we landed, but access to that data has been, I mean, it's not an issue, but it's frustrating because we can't get to it.
Well, if we have a license now, then they should open it up. We probably can even get access to previous data from the Caroline project too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. So Nikki, will you, if you're talking to, will you be talking to Bartlett soon?
Here, sorry, just a
That's
slow in the mute process. Yes, so I'm actually going to send him an email once we get off this call to inquire about the licensing. But he is supposed to get back with me early next week on the start date for the project. So I'll keep Kathleen, I'll keep you looped in on the conversation as well. If there's anything additional you'd like to ask, please feel free. But I just want to make sure that one, that I don't forget to send this email and ask about that, but two, that we are able to track their work. We just have to kind of stay close to this work because again, they are rebuilding. From my side, they're rebuilding some trust, and so I want to make sure we stay close to this.
yeah, I know we've not had, yeah, I hear you, Nikki, and I'm totally with you. So I guess we need to ask them about the cost for the arbor scope, and to Kyle's point, did we pay for it or did we not? And Kyle, it's an annual fee, right?
Well, it looked like that proposal was a three-year license. Or in that slide.
So we'll just need to, if we haven't paid for it, how much is it? And, or I guess it was in there, and go ahead and pay for it and get it operating so we have access to the data. So Nikki, are you, and this may not be relevant, but are you actually with the management district now? Or are you with Haws Hill?
I'm with Haws Hill, but the management district is my task.
Okay, so this is all will be housed at the management district through Haws
Right.
Hill.
Right.
Okay. And then one final question, back to your point about the traffic islands. They look absolutely fabulous. And the one thing that I want to make sure that we follow up on the city with is, and this is a separate topic from the parking benefit district, so I apologize, but Nikki's a busy gal. The budget for the Caroline and Rosedale, if we could have a detailed cost estimate of that and make sure we follow up with the city that they don't put that, they call it planting grade material, but it looks like construction fill to me. So make sure they don't put that in so that Miguel doesn't have to just remove this stuff and add, rack up costs. But if we could have a detailed line item estimate for what those cost, that would be great, or what Caroline and Rosedale cost.
Sure. So I can do that, but you can catch me, busy or not, you can catch me offline. I just want to make sure that we honor the agenda here. So I'll get that sent over to you.
Thank you.
And to the city so we can know where we are, or so they can understand what we have, what we had to incur in order to correct what they put in.
Thank you. Sorry, Rami.
No, you're good. You're good. This is all good. Even if it's not directly related, it's all good to hear. So that's good. Okay, anything else? Melanie, go ahead.
Oh, our next meeting date will be July 20th at 3 p.m.
Perfect.
I will be traveling that day, so I'll send any notes over from my side.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, if there are no further questions or comments, we will conclude this meeting. It's 3:37 p.m. Thank you for joining, and we will see you on July 20th.
Call for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, please. I'm sorry.
So
I will
moved.
get better
So
at
moved.
this, I
Nice.
promise.
So moved.
Okay, do you have a
Second.
second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks, Rami. You're a great stand-in.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care, you guys. See you later. Have a great
Bye.
weekend.
You too.